Governor DeSantis says if you've paid off your house, you shouldn't have to pay property taxes on top of it for the rest of your life. We agree.
No, you should own your property free and clear. I think to say that someone that's been in their house for 35 years just has to keep ponying up money, that is not. You don't own your home if that's the case.
DeSantis is absolutely correct, and he brings up something that a lot of people do not want to address. We have readers. I'm thinking of one guy in particular, way back in the early days of Against Crony Capitalism, and he was in New York. And I remember we were debating back and forth about something. I said, well, why not just check out of New York and move down to some place where things are a little bit better? And he told me that he couldn't, even though his house was paid off, he couldn't because the property taxes were so high where he lived that no one in their right mind would buy the house. That's crazy.
So yes, of course, I'd like to see people be able to owe free and clear. And it's interesting because it's like if I go to Best Buy and buy a flat screen TV and put it on the wall, I got to pay a sales tax on it, right? But I don't keep paying tax on it every year. I mean, it's just not. That's not how we do things. It's like, okay.
It's worth noting that some people would actually want you to pay a tax on your TV for as long as you own it. And that is absolutely nuts. But that philosophy exists.
Okay, if you're going to tax something, you tax it at the transaction and then let people actually enjoy their private property free and clear of the government. So that
private property, what a concept.
I think is the vision. That's the philosophical insight. And if you think about our founding fathers when they were proposing the Constitution in one of the Federalist Papers, I think it was Hamilton, he's writing about, because, there was opposition to the Constitution. They were making a more powerful federal government than under the Articles of Confederation, and people worried about taxation. And they didn't have, obviously, a 16th Amendment, which eventually came on income tax, but basically you were not effectively allowed to do any direct taxation. It had to be indirect, meaning you couldn't just, you could theoretically just apply like a tax on land federally, but it'd have to be apportioned among the states, so practically it could never work. So basically, Hamilton's saying, look, the indirect taxes are the most effective, efficient way to raise revenue for the government because they basically allow the individual to choose how much tax they want to pay based on how much they're consuming. And there's a security, there's a protection against excessive tax in that regard because if the government raises consumption tax too much, it kills the golden goose because then it causes people to stop purchasing as much. But he said taxing property is one of the worst forms of taxation because people don't have a choice in the matter, and you're just basically drilling these folks over and over again on tax.
Which is, as Governor DeSantis knows, really the point of property taxes.
And so it's an issue that I think's pinched a lot of people, but philosophically, it was not the way that that the federal government was constructed. Now I understand local; there was a history of it, and that's kind of been the norm. But man, you talk about family of four having the median home price that is purchased in Florida. That's a pretty hefty tax bill.
It is a pretty hefty tax bill. It is so difficult for middle-class people just to live a middle-class life these days. Things are expensive. Inflation has hit everybody pretty hard. Nobody wants to admit it. Everybody kind of complains, but it is difficult. I feel for the people who don't even own property, who just have to see their rents go up every month or every year. But it is a very significant bill. And DeSantis is talking about in Florida. In a lot of other places, it's way more expensive. You have the typical house, typical family, and then the house is taxed at whatever rate, and the house is worth $500,000 or whatever. I think the median house price or something is somewhere in the 400s now in the United States, which means in places like California and all sorts of other places it's way off the charts. And you've got to pay a bill on that, even if you paid off the house. That's crazy.
Right there, when you come in after buying a home, when you consider what the average income is throughout the United States of America, the math just doesn't add up. And I think that's why people want relief.
He's right. The math increasingly doesn't add up, or it adds up in the wrong way for too many people in this country. And the fact that a lot, especially a lot of older folks, own their homes outright and have to pay this massive bill to the government is really on their property is really crazy. It's, how a lot of older people are chased out of their homes, and that just absolutely stinks. Anyway, appreciate you watching. Please subscribe to the Against Crony Capitalism newsletter. That's how we get to keep doing what we do. So check it out below. Thanks.